When a happy, wholesome, pious religious man decided to take in a bunch of kids from the foster system, people admired him and looked up to him as a pillar of the community. However, there was something a little bit off about his identity, leading to some suspicions as to whether or not he really was who he said he was. His life behind the scenes was anything but the squeaky clean image he presented to the media. Right now, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Incogni. This is because just recently I've been trying to find some service that could remove all of my personal information from these marketing databases out there that I've never consented to be on. It's hard to find a solid, definitive list of all the companies that do this and spread your data all over the internet. There have been numerous data breaches from all sorts of different platforms throughout the years that have been leaking little by little, only adding to the problem. Requesting to be removed from all of these services could take you years to do manually. That's where Incogni comes in. You can just make an account on Incogni and they will send a data protection law compliance request to all of these different companies and demand that they remove all of your data from these different companies' databases. In-app, you'll get a dashboard that will show you the day-by-day progress in getting your data out of the hands of these different companies. They'll even deal with any objections from their side. Not only do companies get your information so that they can market off of you, they also get as much data as they can to build a customer profile of you and sell it to other companies as well, who will use it however they please. They can get your name, aliases, social security number, usernames and passwords, and even your physical home address and specific online activity. It's pretty easy to see how that could go bad pretty quickly. These companies have even taken out massive loans under people's names without them ever knowing, racking up a ton of debt and ruining their credit. Criminals from an underground platform called SSN-DOB were even stealing people's social security numbers, dates of birth, and other personal info from large data brokers like Dun & Bradstreet in order to steal their identities. It's really crazy what they can get their hands on. Incogni's easy. Just make an account and give them the right to work on your behalf, then let them get to work. So take back your personal data with Incogni. Just use my code DIRETRIP, all caps, at the link in the description below to get 60% off an annual plan. Incogni is available risk-free for 30 days, so there's no harm in trying it out. Sometimes people out there aren't really who they say they are. I mean, we all wear a mask to some degree, but some people are so far off from the person that they claim to be that they may as well be in another dimension. Today's video is about one of those such people. Here we have the story of a man named Hayim Cohen, a Hasidic Jewish man living in Texas. He became fairly well known when an article was written about him in 2019. This article, from a magazine called Houstonia, was called One Father, 9 Adopted Kids, and Lots of Faith. In the article, we read how the writer, Morgan Kinney, toured the house and met Hayim and his family. The author was glad to see a happy, healthy, well-put-together family that all came together because this generous man decided that he wanted to open his home to foster children. Hayim said that, once he hit his mid-20s and heard about exactly how many kids were stuck in the system, he felt that it was his calling and that he needed to help out as many as he could. When he was 26 years old in 2008, he felt that he had no choice but to adopt a few Orthodox Jewish boys. Hayim said that he was working as a social worker when he first heard about 2 Orthodox Jewish kids in the foster care system. At first, he says he helped out by bringing them kosher food and later on went on to adopt them. Then, the same basic story played out with more kids, even adopting biological siblings at points. By the time the article was written, Hayim had fostered and gone on to adopt 9 sons. He told those around him that he was very successful in his real estate ventures, giving him the money necessary to raise and homeschool so many kids. In various interviews, he said that his life's mission was, quote, to ensure that Jewish foster children are placed in Jewish homes, adding, altruistic as non-Jewish foster parents may be, their homes and practices are alien to Orthodox kids. He ended by saying, once I got licensed to adopt, I became a go-to adoption destination for Orthodox boys in the foster care system. He wasn't only interested in adopting, though. He also decided to start hosting some foreign exchange students, even having a student from Spain coming over to stay with his family. However, unfortunately, this was only the story that Hayim chose to present to the outside world. While he claimed to be a Hasidic Jew from Williamsburg, New York, this was anything but the truth. Hayim was actually born as a man named Jeffrey Lujan Vegel from Odessa, Texas. He had actually changed his name multiple times over the years, adopting all sorts of identities. For some reason, he decided to settle on the identity of a strict practicing Jew in 2009. He told people that he grew up speaking Yiddish, living among Hasidic Jews in New York City for a good portion of his life. While he has told some people that he converted to Judaism during this time, in contrast to being born into it in New York, there isn't really much evidence that he actually went through the effort of converting. It seems that he kinda just started dressing and acting like that one day abruptly, although there is evidence that he really did research the culture at least. He did not actually speak Yiddish though. Hayim did change his name multiple times to different Jewish sounding names like Gabriel Rosenberg before eventually settling on Hayim Cohen. Hayim had a laundry list of criminal misdemeanors on his record, mainly relating to petty theft. It seems that he never actually had a job that made him any income either. It isn't really known how he managed to get by until this point. When Hayim was approached and spoke to in Yiddish in his hometown, he seemed caught off guard and was unable to respond. One person who tried to speak to him said, he claimed he was one of those guys who threw rocks on Shabbos, but didn't speak a word of Hebrew or a word of Yiddish. He showed up and claimed some references and assumed no one would check. One of the rabbis checked references in New York and it didn't check out. This guy made up a whole backstory. He changed their names in the adoption process and had them grow their hair and dress them. He claims they speak Hebrew or Yiddish, but I don't think any of them do. He's clearly not a rabbi. I think he woke up one day and said, "I'm Jewish," and went to Dallas County and had his name changed. When this was found out, Hayim was shunned from the local Orthodox community and decided to move to Houston in 2010 in a neighborhood mainly consisting of Jews. He continued to present himself as ultra-Orthodox while attending local religious events. It was noted that he was never actually seen attending any synagogue despite claiming to be a devout rabbi. A member of the local Orthodox Jewish community in Houston said that Hayim first showed up around 2009, saying that he came from New York and had lived in Jerusalem. At one point, he even said that his family had been rescued from Yemen before he came to settle in the United States, hoping that this might explain his darker complexion. He told them that he had moved to Houston for some medical treatments that he desperately needed. Hayim was also faking some very serious medical problems in addition to his fake Hasidic heritage. He would often use a wheelchair and a respirator in public and in photos to garner sympathy. But there were many times where he would be standing and breathing as if he were a perfectly healthy man on any other day. It seems that he would pretend to be disabled to appear weaker and fragile whenever people questioned him on his identity or his crimes. As you can imagine, his home life with all of his adopted kids was anything but sunshine and rainbows. In 2019, while hosting that exchange student from Spain, he came to be charged with indecency with a child. The 16-year-old student told the police that, after he had been caught shoplifting from a Walmart, Hayim was quite angry. However, rather than pursue a curfew or something along those lines, Hayim told the boy to make him happy. This consisted of having the boy touch him all over his chest and stomach as he made strange noises. Hayim, disappointed that the boy didn't get aroused, would then go on to touch him and try to force some arousal. When the boy went on to report this to the police, Hayim was arrested and charged. Unfortunately, he was released on bail when he was once again able to ham up his fake disability for some sympathy, leading to the courts to release him for medical reasons. In one legal proceeding, he even coughed up some fake blood and told the court he was in hospice care due to being terminally ill. Hayim and the kids got a lot of praise from both the local news and from Jewish organizations, who didn't quite yet realize that he was an imposter. Hayim told many journalists that his kids were all native Yiddish speakers and that many of them even knew Hebrew. Hayim even told them that he himself was a rabbi. None of this was true, as the kids that Hayim adopted were never Jewish in the first place until he made them convert later on, and he himself was never actually a rabbi. Sherry Chandler, the lawyer for the exchange student that Hayim abused, has said, he would profess to be a rabbi and said he adopted all these Jewish children from other Jewish families. He said that the first two kids were Jewish and that their parents died in an automobile accident. They're not Jewish. The dad ended his own life, and the mother had her parental rights terminated due to drugs, alcohol, and neglect. In the public eye, Hayim continued to present himself as the ideal Jewish father with a beautiful, happy family. He started a YouTube channel, got a TikTok account, and opened up a Facebook account under the title of Our Unique Family, where he would go on to post pictures and clips of family trips, cooking and meals, and videos about Jewish culture, usually filmed around their home in Houston.
Well, last week I had taken my kiddos, 5 or 6 of them, to their well child checkup. If you don't know, I'm a little OCD about making sure my kiddos are getting their well child checkups, their dental appointments, etc. I want to tell each and every one of you that you are loved by the Almighty no matter what. And I assure you that every effort, every mitzvah you perform to be a better person matters. The time for reflection and introspection has come. Ani ledoidi vedoidi li. I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me. We started I guess you could say an association, a Jewish homeschool association.
He quickly gained over 300,000 followers on TikTok in particular, with a modest amount on other platforms as well. Little did anyone know how bad things really were behind the scenes. In 2020, one of Hayim's older sons set up a GoFundMe page to ask for donations to help pay for his father's medical treatments. Hayim, while again being listed as terminally ill, never did specify what kind of problem he was even suffering from. In the end, the campaign raised the family a few $1,000s. When Hayim continued to be questioned on social media as to why his Jewish practices were a little weird and inaccurate, he said that this was because all of his kids came from different strains of orthodoxy, so he kind of blended them all together. He felt that this would pretty much explain away the inaccuracies in his practices. Hayim continued to rake in both donations and gifts from Jewish organizations and from people who were just impressed with his goal of helping foster children. It seems that Hayim and the family survived on these and stipends that he received from fostering the kids, although it isn't really known where his money came from in the end. On YouTube and TikTok, Hayim continued to present himself as a father who was simply trying his best to raise his kids, talking about homeschooling, proper Jewish practice and education, pets, and fun activities. Meanwhile, the kids were actually isolated within their home, unable to contact anyone about their real life behind the camera. One son even said, in his own words, "The mask we put on is damn near invincible," when speaking of their image and reputation in the community. In fact, Hayim even had his kids volunteer with the local police, presenting his perfect family image straight to them himself. In reality, Hayim was beating the kids with belts and even spraying them with pepper spray when he felt that they had misbehaved. He would threaten them with injury and even murder on various occasions. In addition, they were usually only fed one meal a day and only allowed out of their rooms to eat and use the bathroom. He was sexually abusing at least 6 of the boys as well. It started with foot massages that seemed a little too sensual. While I won't go into detail about what he ended up doing by the end, let's just say he went as far as he could with it. He would even force the boys to perform these acts on each other at times. Sometimes this would start for the boys as soon as 3 weeks after being adopted. Things really began to degrade into chaos when one of the sons managed to run away and go to the police. After telling them what was going on, Child Protective Services first got involved with investigating the family. 8 times, in fact. However, in the end, nothing was done and the runaway boy was eventually forced by the police to return back to his family. Hayim had told the police that, if there was any physical abuse, it was due to his sleepwalking and he was getting treatment for it. Hayim's partner in crime was none other than his oldest adopted son, Avshalom Cohen. Avshalom, in his 20s, went on to treat the younger boys much in the same way that Hayim did. He would beat on the younger kids, then bribe them to be quiet with energy drinks and vapes. On several occasions, he would even defend Hayim, beating one boy to the ground for backtalking him. After a while, he even began to sexually abuse a few of the boys himself. The boys feared getting beaten up by him again if they spoke up about it. One of the sons, not the same one who ran away, was now 17 years old, soon to turn 18. He was listening to a podcast, one called Blind Skin Beauty, hosted by Twaya Paines. He decided to call in himself and let loose about everything that had went on with his family behind the scenes. The hosts were appalled to hear about the details, some of which the boy couldn't even say, opting to write them instead. For the first time, the outside world got to hear about how the Cohen family really worked. The boy spoke of why he didn't speak up in the first place, saying that his other brothers were unwilling to speak up and that he felt that it would be his word against theirs.
Okay, so first off, I do know the sergeant personally, and I know the commander. Now, the problem here is it's essentially my word versus all of my brothers. work. So I don't want to provide too much detailed information. I just want to know what should be done.
He went on to detail the CPS investigations as well, explaining how they had failed time after time.
When it comes to the CPS investigations, there has been 8 launched and all of them were acquitted. So anytime we make a CPS investigation, he'll either bribe us or he'll just directly scare us. And 2 of my brothers are 7 and 8. So there is no chance.
One of his biggest fears was that he would face some severe retaliation, even possibly be blamed for all of the crimes himself if he ever came forward.
Basically, I also am afraid of retaliation. Like, if I'm getting pinned for retaliation, because one of the major things that happens here that I don't even want to say it, I'll type it. Basically, he's going to just say, no, it was you.
He even told the host that, once he turned 18, Hayim was going to send him off to Israel to work. There he could better control his income, hoarding most of it for himself, and have the boy out of reach of the US authorities. He told them that he was using a burner phone over Wi-Fi to hide his true identity, being afraid to speak up at all in the first place. He said that at one point he spoke about the abuse anonymously online. When Hayim found out, he broke his phone, deleted all of his social media, and took $200 from him. Twaya, along with the other participants on the podcast, begged the boy to go forward with telling the police about all of this regardless. They assured him that he would be heard and a more thorough investigation would be done if he was willing to provide the details. They tried to convince him to contact the police, but they also decided to keep him on the line for as long as they could while they reached out to law enforcement themselves. Twaya said, I became concerned immediately and just like I had to do something. That was my immediate feeling. I said, we've got to keep this kid talking, we've got to keep him on the phone. When the podcasters reported the case to the police, they were able to determine where he was living based on his IP address. When the police came out to the home, the boy initially denied that he had even made the call, but after being presented with the audio, he relented and admitted that it was indeed him. When the police interviewed the other brothers, more of them came to admit that the allegations were true. This sparked a brand new, full-scale police investigation. Hayim Nassim Cohen, now 38 years old, was finally arrested on many charges. Some of these charges included injury to a child under 15, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault of a child, and continuous sexual abuse of a child. It seems that his previous abuse of the exchange student was factored in and added to this case. In total, Hayim was hit with 11 felonies and thrown into a Houston jail. He refused to speak to the media in any capacity. The 6 sons under the age of 18 were taken back into foster care. Their ages were 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Sherry Chandler, the lawyer representing the exchange student, said, "There were so many red flags. You don't just start one day. We all suspected the other kids were getting abused." Child Protective Services refused to comment on the case or even elaborate on how many times they had been out to the home. The prosecutor made it clear that several investigations had been launched with none of them leading to any charges, however. When asked why nothing had been done, she responded, "There was suspicion and things we were following up on, but nothing significant that we could bring charges on." Hayim Cohen's own lawyer, Charles Johnson, told the media that they were going to do everything that they can to show that he did not do this, adding, "We are fortunate to have a system where he has the opportunity to be innocent until proven guilty." Sherry Chandler and her client decided to sue the company that placed the exchange student with Hayim in the first place, citing gross negligence among other offenses. Hayim had lied about his criminal background, faked his references, and even fabricated even more information that the program had failed to detect. He used his religious facade as a cover, trying to portray himself as the kind of person who would never do something like that. Sherry said, "Why he chose an Orthodox Jewish persona, I don't know. I would not even begin to understand that, but I will say that for some people it is a very different culture, and so there may be less questions about some of the things that were maybe different on their face, because a lot of people don't understand the Orthodox Jewish faith." She said that she felt Hayim was able to adopt most of the children simply because he managed to foster the first 2, giving him the credibility that he needed to adopt even more. She added, "He's been allowed to float through the adoptions, the fostering, and the foreign exchange student process with no verification of anything." The son who called into the podcast has kept in touch with the podcasters. Twaya said, "He's really lost right now and he's hurting," saying that she even offered to foster some of the boys herself. While she was happy to hear that Hayim was finally arrested, she acknowledged that there was more to do going forward.
It was a huge release. I was just in the house like, thank you, Jesus. I was so excited. It brought life back to me, to be honest. This stuff was going on. They just didn't, they couldn't bring it about. It really hurts to the core. We got to make sure that they're safe. We got to make sure that they're taken care of.
To the shock of many, Hayim was eventually given bond and released from jail. He was forbidden from going within 1,000 feet of anywhere that a child might be, such as a school or a park. Many people came to ask why he was allowed release. A spokesperson for the district attorney said, "There's generally a pretty high bar for a defendant to be held without bond, which is a constitutionally protected right in most circumstances." This case really revealed a severe lack of oversight in both the foster care system, child protective services, and even the company that hosted international students in the area. Not only that, but it made the currently growing anti-Semitism even worse, given that he presented himself as an Orthodox Jewish man, with people not really knowing that this was merely a persona. It seems that the local Jewish community in Houston was hit particularly hard by the backlash from the case. While many might have thought that the case would end here, it didn't. There's one person that we haven't followed up on yet, and that's Avshalom Cohen, Hayim's right-hand man. Avshalom, in his 20s, was able to simply live on his own after his father was arrested. What he did with this life was anything but conventional, opting to go into a life of crime himself. Early one morning, the police pulled over a black van near the Mexican border, seeing that Avshalom was the driver. When they searched the vehicle, they found 8 illegal immigrants, a smoke bomb, a loaded gun with 9mm 50-round drum, and a fake police badge. Avshalom told the police that he had no idea that the people he was transporting over the border were undocumented. When the police searched his phone, they came across several text messages informing him of different pickup and drop-off locations. Soon after, he was arrested for what he had done to his brothers as well, hit with a charge of felony sexual assault of a child. The police were able to get a warrant for his arrest and picked him up at a traffic stop. There, they found a loaded gun and 2 unlabeled bottles of pills. So he was hit with some drug charges as well. Currently, he remains in police custody. He has been given a $25,000 bond for both of the cases open against him. If he never posts these bonds, he'll be transferred to Harris County to rot away in jail. It's unknown when his sentencing will be, but it's looking like he's going to be facing some real time. Hayim Cohen, Gabriel Rosenberg, Jeffrey Vegel, whatever you may call him, is currently awaiting his sentence in relation to the 11 felonies he's currently charged with. It's unknown when this sentencing will actually take place, but it's very likely that he's going to be looking at quite the hefty prison term when that does happen. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Just recently, I've started up a podcast with 4 of my friends called the NBR Podcast. If you find this channel interesting, you might like that one as well. I've also opened up a merch store where you can get yourself some Dire Trip related t-shirts. Go ahead and check it out. If you want, go ahead and follow me on social media, and I always appreciate when people follow me on Patreon. There you can get videos early, ad-free, and uncensored. Channel memberships are back up too, and you can get all the same benefits there as well. Once again, this has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.